All right, it's time for season 2, episode 8 of Empty, Kierion's Sloppy Feast. All right, if you missed any of my last episodes, you can find them on my YouTube channel. Basically, you can go to www.youtube.com/@EricRuggles. It'll have season 1 on there, all 9 episodes, and then episodes 1 through 8 will be on there. This is episode 8. The playlist on that channel is Empty Podcast episodes. There are some other playlists on there. Feel free to look at them and become a subscriber today. Thank you very much. Where we left off, okay? Raiden was basically looking to find J.J. Satterfield, the mystic, who knows how to kill Kierion. He had to talk to him to find out if there was any way to kill this beast. Also, there was a group of freshman football players. They wanted to prove their bravery and how tough they were to the senior football players by finding this ogre in the woods in his cabin. The ogre being Creo. Little did they know Creo is already dead, but they're still going to seek out that cabin to see if they can find this ogre. Alright, so this is where we left off. And as you know, Creo's cabin did not have Wi-Fi, so Raiden was going to have to go somewhere else in order to find information on Satterfield. Here we go. Raiden thought about where he could go to do some research on Satterfield. He just had to talk to him. Raiden remembered visiting Duke University for a tour. He possibly might have gone there if he decided to ever change his attitude about school. Yep, that was just far enough he might not get seen by anyone that might know him. So Raiden thought about the time he was in the library and he appears in the restroom in a stall. Luckily, the stall was empty. He peered through the crack of the bathroom stall door to see if anyone was in the bathroom. He looked as good as he could through the small crack and he did not see anyone. So he opened the stall door and started washing his hands at the sink to make it look like he was using the bathroom in case anyone walked into the bathroom. He finished up by drying his hands and walked out the door and proceeded to enter the main area of the library. He remembered where the computers were located from the visit, so he headed that way to see if any were open to use. Awesome. There were 2 not in use. He sat down at one of the computers and started his search. He remembered in the journal that Creo mentioned something about YouTube videos. He remembered reading that Creo did not find but only a few videos, but the few videos were how he about caught up to JJ. So Raiden went on to YouTube and typed in Satterfield. There was a shitload of videos that were related to the search of Satterfield. Great, said Raiden. This is going to take all day. Well, not like I have anywhere I could go, he whispered to himself. About 2 hours later, he skimmed through the last Satterfield video, and nothing. He found absolutely nothing about mystical creatures or any supernatural information in the videos. Probably should have known he wouldn't have used his own name in the publishing of the videos. So Raiden figured he would try Mystic Supernatural vids. And before he could type that into the computer, his eyes were distracted by a very pretty girl, and she was walking toward him. She sat down at the computer right by him and started to log into the computer. It was approaching evening, and the freshman boys that planned the sleepover, Dalton, Joseph, and Steve, entered the door to Dalton's house. Jimmy, of course, was at home because of family stuff and was pretty bummed out about not being able to go. As they entered, Dalton said, "What's up, Mom?" His mom said, "Hello, boys," and asked, "So, what are your plans for tonight?" Dalton answered, "Would it be okay if we walk to the pizza place and get dinner there?" "Do you all have money?" replied his mother. The boys in unison said, "No." "How do you plan on buying the pizza?" asked his mother. "We were hoping you could give us some cash," replied Dalton. "Oh, okay. So I am the ATM, Mom," asking with a sarcastic tone. I guess, said Dalton. Okay, well, here's about 50. That should be enough for pizza and drinks, said Dalton's mother. Thanks, Mom. That should be fine. And love you, said Dalton. Love you too, said his mother. At that moment, the boys turned around with their backpacks and headed out the door. As they were walking down the sidewalk, Steve asked, Are we really going to go eat pizza? No, you dumbass. The money is to get supplies at the Dollar General, replied Dalton with a smack to Steve's head. Oh, okay, said Steve. That is smart. Yeah, unlike you, replied Dalton. The boys continued their walk toward the Dollar General. It was about a 5-minute walk to the store, so it did not take long before the boys walked through the automatic doors of the Dollar General. They got some beef jerky and some drinks, along with 3 flashlights and batteries. The money Dalton got from his mom was enough because the flashlights were the small ones. They put everything on the counter, the clerk rung them up, and they gathered their stuff and put it in their bags. They were probably going to be longer than a pizza dinner would take, but it was too late, and they were out of the house, and they decided to face the consequences later. The boys finally got to the school and proceeded to go towards the woods. As they got to the edge of the woods, they heard a girl's voice. Are you going to see the large man that lives in the cabin in the woods? The boys were startled. They were startled a lot. Who are you? And how do you know about the man in the woods and our intentions to go see him? I am Miley. I kind of help the large man from time to time, and I know where his cabin is located. I have been there before. Really? Said Dalton. Steve added in, I think I've seen you in the halls before. Miley then explained she overheard the boys talking and hid behind the bleachers and heard the whole conversation. That is how she knew they were going to go find Kierion. That is his name, she added. Well, do you want me to take you there? Hell yes, said Dalton, and the group of 4 headed into the woods, and their flashlights beaming brightly along a trail in the woods. Earlier that day, after the group of boys' discussion of tracking down the ogre, when Kierion was watching them and listening to them, Kierion decided not to wait until tonight to follow the boys, and so he ventured into the woods to look for the cabin, and hopefully find Kierion, kill him, and be done with what Kierion believed to be his only threat. So he did what he heard in the conversation. He went straight north from the football field. Kierion had super speed, but he did not use it in order to draw attention to himself if other people were hiking. As Kierion approached a clearing in the woods, he stood and took a scope of his surroundings, and as he looked around, he thought he saw a structure in the distance to his left. He gradually turned and started walking in that direction, and as he got closer, he began to be cautious, because it was a cabin, and Kierion knew it was the cabin he was looking for. As he crept closer, his fangs began to grow from his mouth, his eyes a dark red, and his skin was a pale gray. Kierion was ready to attack and end Kieri's life. He creeped to the window and slowly peered into the cabin. It seemed to be empty, so he waited a few minutes to see if there was any movement, but there wasn't. The cabin was definitely empty. He slowly reverted back to human form and began to enter the cabin. He looked around and did not see much. He saw a camo backpack near the table in the front room and a book laying on the table, but nothing else. He walked toward the bedroom, and the bed looked as if it had been slept in, so someone has definitely been there. He walked back to the front room, and he picked up the backpack. And on the front of the backpack, it read, Raiden Miller. Who the hell is Raiden Miller? Kierion thought to himself. He opened the backpack, and there was a toothbrush, some toothpaste, toilet paper, some clothes, and that was about it. Kierion then directed his attention to the book on the table. Kierion sat in the chair, grabbed the book, and began to read it. He saw that it was a journal of Kirion's, so he began to read it. He learned of Jeffrey Satterfield, of Charles, of Raiden, and of course read the section about him. So after reading the journal, he figured out who Raiden Miller was, and then he may have to kill more than just Creo. But what of the bag? Kierion thought. Why is Raiden's bag here, and it is packed as if he was alive? Two options. Raiden killed Creo and is staying in the cabin, or Creo killed Raiden when Raiden was on the run and took Raiden's bag. Right now, Kierion had to figure out who he was up against. Raiden, Charles, and Creo were the three, but who was left, and did Raiden and Charles battle Creo? The three freshman football players, along with Miley, were making good time through the woods. Miley, of course, being part of Creo's little gang, knew exactly where she was going. She had a smile on her face, thinking to herself that Creo would be so proud of her that she brought possible new recruits. Joseph, Dalton, and Steve continued to shine their flashlights so Miley could see and lead them to the cabin. And of course, the large man she called Creo. They were scared, but excited at the same time. Miley said, "We are close, so let me go up to the cabin first and talk to Creo." Dalton replied, "Sounds good. We'll stay back a ways until you say it is okay to approach you." They walked about another quarter of a mile, and there it was, the cabin, about 30 yards away. There was a light on, and you could make out the outline of a person in the window. Miley said, "Okay, you guys, stay here. I will signal you when it is okay to come to the cabin." So Miley started walking towards the cabin. As she made noise by crushing the leaves and twigs below her feet, not knowing the danger that she was about to encounter, she continued to approach the cabin. Kierion, with his werewolf instincts, could smell and hear the group in the woods approaching the cabin. Miley got to the cabin porch and knocked on the door. In an instant, the door flew open and Kierion was in a werewolf form, snatching up Miley, biting her head and exploding her body into chunks of flesh and body parts by mere force of his massive werewolf body. The boys flashed their lights toward the cabin door, and there lay Miley's body with no head on the porch, blood everywhere, and chunks of Miley's body laid on the porch and the surrounding ground. The boys screamed in fear and began to run, but they were no match for the speed of Kierion, and he ran all three down and devoured each one of them. Kierion was getting sloppy. He left a bloody mess and trail, and Kierion stood in the woods and stared at his masterpiece of death. Alright, there you have it. Episode 8 of Empty, Season 2. Alright, if you're enjoying this story, make sure you subscribe to my channel and actually get notifications so you can know when the next episode comes up. It'll be episode 9. You don't want to miss this ending. It's a good one. Alright, Kierion's getting sloppy and things are going to come to fruition. Alright, I appreciate all of you that have subscribed, and I hope you're enjoying my story, because that's all I ask, is that people like it. Alright, thank you.